A crackling fire, s'mores, and the solitary sounds of the wild. What could be better than a handsome stud heading to the mountains to camp for the weekend? Answer: a burly bro setting up a tent nearby and asking to join you by your fire to drink a few beers. And possibly a bit more. Hi everyone, it's me, Casey, your host for Steamy Stories, the podcast where bromance turns bromosexual. Today we're camping. That's right, we're headed to the great outdoors, so grab your wood, we're about to pitch a tent, and things are gonna get wild. Austin was a natural outdoorsman. He was young, handsome, and strong. Ever since graduating from the Boy Scouts, he lived for hiking, fishing, and being in the wild. But his job as an assistant pharmacist made it difficult for him to get time off from work. All he could manage were short weekend camping excursions in the nearby woods. Austin's co-workers all took turns flirting with him. Was it his muscular body, sparkling blue eyes, or sandy blonde hair that made them all melt at the sight of him? Either way, none of them interested Austin. Dating wasn't part of his plan, nor was falling in love. Yet. His passion was nature, and he couldn't spend enough time in it. It was 8 p.m., just before dusk, when Austin arrived at his favorite campsite. He was grateful that the sun was still high enough in the sky that he had enough light to set up his tent and prepare his campfire. As the evening rolled in, the forest started singing its song, with crickets chirping and frogs croaking. A crack of a beer can opening was the perfect accompaniment to the sonnet. Austin pressed the cold can to his lips and breathed a mighty sigh as he put the finishing touches on his campsite. Heaven. Suddenly, a woman's voice shouted, "Give me a beat!" It was loud and clear and cut through the tranquility of the woods like a samurai sword, as did the booming bass line that followed. Oh, hell no. Austin instantly knew what was happening, and he wasn't having any of it. He hastily put down his beer and traced the music to a nearby campsite, blasting their boombox. Through the thicket, not 50 feet away, was an encampment right next to the river. The music could easily be heard blaring from within the tent. Who sets their campsite so close to the water? Well, he immediately knew the answer. A novice camper, of course. As the sounds of Janet Jackson pounded on, a man bathing in the nearby water could be seen. Austin was annoyed, but stayed a minute to assess his next steps before reacting. The man that was chest deep in the water was lean, athletic, and exotically striking in his appearance. Okay. Just because this dude is hella hot doesn't mean he can blast his music at a campsite, right? There's a time and a place for Miss Jackson, and this isn't it. The man spotted Austin and cheerfully called out to him, "Oh, hi. Name's Daniel. Care to join me for a swim?" "Nah, I'm good. I just came by to ask you to turn down your radio," he replied, attempting to be civil about the problem at hand. "Oh, that's not my music," the ripped, sexy stranger replied. The man began heaving his mighty body forward through the water, approaching Austin. With each step, the setting sun cast brilliant orange and purple colors on his wet, glistening pecs and ab muscles. The liquid cascaded off his body, almost reluctant to lose touch with something so magnificent. His white boxers, now translucent, clung to every impressive inch of him. Austin tried not to look, but his eyes kept forcing themselves down past the dark patch of hair below his navel that led downward over his lower abs and ended at the impossibly low waistband of his shorts. Austin's breathing became shallow as he realized, oof, this is exactly the kind of stud I've imagined wandering into my tent in the middle of the night. Daniel's deep voice jolted Austin back to reality as he explained, "My sister's the Janet Jackson fan. She's the culprit. I'm happy to tell her to turn it down. It's nothing like the sounds of nature when you're in the wild, right?" Austin agreed as he fought to keep his eyes from examining Daniel's hulking body. A young female voice sounded from inside the tent. "Who are you talking to? What's going on out there?" "It's just some dude camping nearby. He came by to say hello. Don't come out of the tent just yet. I'm about to change." Without warning, Daniel peeled off his wet underwear and casually hung them on a nearby tree. His impressive body now glistened in the golden setting sun. Daniel's jeans were conveniently close by. He easily stepped into them and pulled them up over his unapologetically large manhood. Confidently, he gave himself a healthy tuck and adjustment, then cautiously lifted the zipper of his fly. Daniel asked, "I take it your campsite is within earshot? How about I make you a deal? I'll ask my sister to lower the music enough that we can't hear it from your tent, if you'll let me join you for a quick beer." Austin thought about it for a minute. He hadn't planned for any company that evening, but this guy was way too hot to say no to. Even though he craved the solitude of the mountain, the company of a hunky guy for a few minutes sounded nice. "Sure, a quick beer works for me." Austin's fire was still burning when they arrived at his site. Daniel proudly held up a mini cooler filled with imported beers and pulled out 2. "Well, you've got quite the blaze here. I brought a 6er in case you didn't have any Bruce." The 2 young men sat quietly by the roaring fire for a few minutes without speaking a word. Austin inquired, "What's up with you camping with your sister? Is there a story there?" Daniel took a swig of his drink and replied, "She's a Girl Scout. She needed a few merit badges. I agreed to help her get them. It's not like I can let a 14-year-old go camping alone, right?" Austin helped himself to a second beer. "You're a good brother. That's very considerate. I was a scout when I was younger. Taught me many things, like always be prepared for anything." The 2 men settled into the lush green landscape comfortably. The night was quiet, and the stars were plentiful. It was the perfect temperature for a fire to take away the night chill. "Are you sure your sister's gonna be okay alone?" Austin wondered aloud. "Dude, she's like 50 feet away. I'm sure she's fine. I can text her to see if you're worried. That is, unless that's your polite way of telling me to leave." "No, of course not. I'm enjoying your company, just wondering about a 14-year-old being by herself in the wild, that's it," he quickly replied. "You don't know young girls. She's probably on her phone with her friends or gaming. Trust me, she's fine. She'd prefer me not to be there in the tent with her, really." Daniel stood up suddenly and grabbed the nearby kerosene lamp. "I gotta take a leak. What about you?" Austin thought about it for a minute and realized he did too. Daniel was asking him to pee with him. Should he join? If he said no, then got up later, it would look like he was pee-shy and too embarrassed to stand by another man as they relieved themselves. Well, since his bladder was bursting, it was best just to say yes and go to the bathroom with him. The 2 men stepped towards a clearing in the bush. Daniel put the lamp down and opened his pants. He freely urinated while letting out a relieved sigh. Austin bashfully joined him. Although he struggled to start peeing, he could finally get it going. He attempted to keep his eyes away from Daniel, which made it difficult to see where he was urinating. "Dude, relax. No need to be shy about looking. We're both sporting the same equipment." He then chuckled. "Correction. Yours looks bigger than mine. Austin was shocked and embarrassed. What did he just say? Now he couldn't help but look at what Daniel was talking about. Austin attempted to casually glance over to see the size difference between the men. Daniel burst out laughing. I knew you'd have to look after I said that. Austin quickly finished up, zipped his fly, grabbed the lamp, and retreated to the campground. Daniel took more time to finish up his business. He struggled to find his way to Austin's campsite in the dark. You took the lamp, Daniel teased. I hope you're not embarrassed about my silly joke back there. I didn't realize you were so uptight about this sort of thing. Austin was quick to answer. I'm not uptight. I just don't look at other guys' things. Things? Daniel laughed. Okay, if you say so. He sat by the fire again, making himself more comfortable than before, as he continued. Well, that at least answers that question. Austin wanted to know what he was talking about, and made it clear that he needed to understand what he meant by his statement. Daniel elaborated. I guess you're straight then. I mean, if you don't look at other guys' things. Austin was annoyed, yet he couldn't figure out exactly why. He just found Daniel's assumptions about him bothersome. One has nothing to do with the other. Some people just want privacy when doing private things. Daniel could sense Austin's agitation. I should go. It's probably best I let you enjoy the rest of your night. Daniel stood and started gathering his things. The glow from the fire made his athletic build even more imposing and sexier than before. Austin thought for a minute as he looked him over. I certainly wouldn't mind this hot hunk's company for a few more minutes, even if he was a meathead. You're welcome to chill and have another beer. No need to leave. Daniel smirked and sat by the fire again. Well, since you offered me a beer, pass one over. Austin reached into the cooler, pulled out 2 beers, and handed over another frosty beverage. Alcohol makes guys do and say some stupid shit, Daniel flatly stated, apologizing for his silly statement. Yeah, I guess it does, Austin replied, deciding to make light of the situation. Daniel innocently continued the conversation as he man-spread his legs wide. So, have you ever made out with another dude? The timing of the question perfectly coincided with Austin's swallowing. A heavy swig, combined with the shock of Daniel's inquiry, caused him to spit out his beverage comically. Daniel laughed as he doubled down. I'll take that as a no. Me neither. I was just wondering. Austin attempted to make sense of the question asked of him. What is this guy talking about? Is this dude trying to ask if I'm gay or not? Austin wasn't in the mood to explain himself or continue this conversation. It was getting late, and he decided it was probably best to spend the evening alone. Without wasting another moment, he replied, Actually, it's late. Best we get some rest. I hope the rest of your camping trip goes well. Austin then stood up to make it clear that he intended to retire for the night. Daniel knew it was time to go. Without pausing, he grabbed his cooler and excused himself by saying, Thanks for the company. I enjoyed sharing your fire with you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Daniel smiled weakly, took his flashlight, and exited through the trees. Although the temperature dropped at night, the small, confined space in his tent made it warm to sleep in. Once inside and settled, Austin unzipped his sleeping bag and removed his t-shirt and jeans. He found that the less he wore in his sleeping bag, the more comfortable he was. As Austin laid on his back in his boxers, staring up at the top of the tent, he couldn't help but play back the recent conversation in his head. The more he thought about it, the more the whole evening made no sense to him. As the night's noises became more pronounced and the evening sky darkened, one thing became more apparent to him. Daniel would not be leaving his thoughts for a while. The image of the beefy man just sitting by the fire with him, drinking a beer, illuminated by the golden glow of the embers, was too fiery for words. The sight of his muscular arms with their bulging veins just made Austin's breathing shallow. Without realizing it, Austin could feel himself lightly brushing his hands over his tight abs and running his fingers over his toned pecs. The touch of his own body made him more and more excited. As Austin casually slipped his hand under the waistband of his boxers, he could hear a rustling in the trees outside the tent. What could be out there? Raccoon? Bear? Did I put all the food away? Before he could slip on his jeans, a bright spot appeared at the front of his tent. Daniel's voice quietly called out, "Austin, it's Daniel. Sorry to bother you, but I couldn't just leave the conversation where we did. I need to talk to you." What is it with this guy? Why is he back here? Did I not make it clear that I was done with him? Before Austin could reply, the zipper on the tent door opened to reveal Daniel peering in with his flashlight. Austin inquired in a firm tone, "Dude, what do you want?" "Just to talk," Daniel replied as he glanced around Austin's tent's spacious interior. Without an invitation, Daniel kicked off his flip-flops and entered the tent. He zipped the door closed behind him and sat down. Who invites themselves into someone's tent without asking? Austin did his best to cover up his exposed body. The situation was awkward as he lay only partially covered by his sleeping bag. "Listen, if you're worried about something you said to me, you're fine. I'm fine. Maybe you'd just be better off sleeping off the beers you drank." Daniel corrected him. "I'm not drunk. 3 beers over a few hours, I'm stone sober. I came back because I was afraid I said something stupid and offended you." Austin didn't answer. Best to let this guy get whatever he wants to say off his chest and then leave. Daniel's demeanor was that of an endearing, concerned man. "Listen, I'm sure I approached it the wrong way, and I screwed up a very nice evening. I came back to clarify my intentions before. I wanted you to know I think you're really hot, in a way that I rarely find other dudes. I just thought, well, out in the wilderness, the rules are different. And I wanted to know if you would let me kiss you." Austin found Daniel's whispered voice and bashful tone endearing. He wondered, was this guy simply flirting with me the entire time we were sitting by the fire? Was all that awkward stumbling around in an attempt at requesting his first same-sex kiss? Austin wasn't sure what to do. Should he make this stud feel at ease? Perhaps give him what he's looking for? Daniel continued, as Austin's mind raced. "It's none of my business how you identify yourself. I was never too much for labels. I just came by to tell you that I think it would be nice to spend the night with you in your tent, if you were interested." Daniel reached over his head, grasped the back of his t-shirt, lifted it over his head and off his body with an easy, sweeping motion. He knew what his best assets were and was eager to advertise them. And Austin was happy to inspect the merchandise. Daniel's hulking chest and ripped arms made it almost impossible for Austin to turn away from the muscular stud. Austin couldn't help himself as he casually inquired, "What about your sister? Is she going to be okay sleeping alone in her tent tonight? Daniel laughed. She's the one who convinced me to come back here and try again to seduce you. Oh, so that's what this is. A seduction. Austin smirked. Two practically naked men in a small, hot tent together? Both of them turned on by the other? Yeah. I'd call that a seduction. Austin agreed. Everything Daniel said was true, especially the part about them both being, turned on. So, what's next? Austin inquired. You said you'd never been with a guy before. Do you know how this works? Daniel replied with a mischievous smile. Well, I guess, same as with a woman, only hotter. He teased as he leaned in and kissed Austin, innocently at first, then more passionately. Without missing a beat, he tugged the sleeping bag off of Austin and straddled him like a cowboy mounting a horse. Daniel used his powerful hand to pin Austin down, and his other hand whipped off his belt through the hoops of his jeans as he quickly unfastened the top button. Let me know if there's something you like. I'm not sure how aggressive is too aggressive with another dude. Oh, fuck. When you cross the line, I'll let you know. But as of right now, you're doing excellent. Oh, Austin replied. He gasped to catch his breath, mindful of just how much noise he could make in the tent that evening without disturbing his neighbors. If Janet Jackson taught him anything that day, it was that a loud shout easily carried throughout the campground. The following morning, Austin prepared a pot of coffee and a hearty breakfast for the three of them. Daniel's sister suggested they spend another night at the campground. As a fledgling scout, she believed that there were more merit badges she could collect. Daniel was the first to agree that another evening in the mountains was an excellent idea. Austin was grateful for the extra supplies he packed for the weekend, and as a former scout, he also couldn't help but believe he earned a few merit badges himself that weekend. Well, Austin certainly possessed the skills to survive in the wilderness, and it doesn't get much wilder than what happened at the campsite that weekend. You've been listening to Steamy Stories, written by JC Calciano and narrated by me, Casey. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and join us next month for another installment of Steamy Stories. Later, bro.